All right, so it is Friday it's the 9th? It's the 9th. Friday morning. There's the warrior. So, I still feel incredibly unprepared for this. You see Maddie's nice Christmas tree. I was no help on that. I was doing something else. But yeah, the midwife is on her way. And we're filling up the tub here. I kind of had to do some makeshift duct tape with our protector. And yeah, so far things are very similar to Theo's birth story. Maddie's labor escalates really quick. Once the contractions started, they just kind of keep escalating really quickly. So maybe make another video here in a little bit on how things have progressed. How are you feeling?
More prepared this time than last.
With our duct tape pool protector.
Prepared to handle the contractions.
All right. Yeah, this one's, it's definitely a little more relaxed because we don't have to go anywhere. And yeah, as soon as we're done, we will just relax here. So, yeah. Any last words before we cut off for a little while? All right. Hopefully the next time I make a video, we'll have a baby really close on the way. So.
Ooh, stretching. Welcome back to Dyson Days. I am Madison Dyson. Here we make videos of our day-to-day striving to raise our children up in the Lord, and also a little bit of first-time homesteading. Today's video is going to be Evelyn's birth story. It was a home birth, and she is 5 days old today. Evelyn's labor started Thursday night of last week. It was before my husband Mark and I went to bed that I started getting my first contractions. They started at 10:30 p.m. and they were consistent contractions, but they weren't intense yet. So I actually didn't think too much of it. But they were the first contractions that started being consistent. So I was thinking, okay, this may be labor because I haven't had consistent contractions yet. They were about 10 minutes apart at 10:30. I remember going to my husband's office because he was still working and saying, tonight might be the night. And I think he looked at me and he was like, are you serious? And I was like, I think so, but they're not intense yet, so I'll let you know soon. And so I spent some time in the kitchen editing the last video because I started these contractions the same day that I recorded Theodore's birth story, which was my last video that I posted just a few days ago. So that same day that I recorded his birth story, later that night, I started having these consistent labor contractions. So an hour went by. I had a few intense contractions, but not every single one of them was intense, but they were consistent. They were still about 10 minutes apart, some of them 7 minutes apart. Nothing painful. I was very grateful for that. So we just stayed up. My husband continued to work and I moved some things out of the living room so that the pool would be in the center here. We birthed here in this living room. I wanted to be by the Christmas tree with the pretty lights. It was just a good atmosphere. I put the boombox here in the cabinet so that we could have some music, and then I put on some other string lights just to make a very comfortable atmosphere. So around 1:15, the contractions were still happening consistently, but again, they weren't painful. So we did call my midwife and let her know that labor is happening, but she doesn't need to come yet because I didn't think they were intense enough, and I thought we had time to maybe go upstairs and rest. So we told her not to come yet, but we'll call her back, whenever the contractions start getting more intense, because I knew my body pretty well, and it didn't feel anything like Theo's, like I needed to rush. So we talked to her on the phone for a couple minutes, and she said, call me back and let me know when I should head that way. I will be ready. And she's about 40 minutes away. So we went upstairs, and both of us actually laid down to try to get some sleep. And I laid on my left side, and the contractions actually spread out. I didn't get another one for about 12 minutes, and it was not intense at all. So then I was thinking, okay, maybe it's not labor. So I rolled over to my right side, and then I had 2 contractions back to back that were intense. So I woke my husband up and I said, okay, let's go get the water in the pool. That's how intense they were. I was thinking, wow, that picked up quick, but I want to be in a warm pool, somewhere comfortable. So we walked back downstairs, and that was probably 1:30, and so I started resting, leaning here up against the pool, just taking the weight off of my legs. I was sitting up, leaning on the pool, taking deep breaths, and that was a really comfortable position, even though the contractions were picking up intensity. And I'm using the word intense instead of pain because it actually, I told myself, this is not pain, this is pressure. So that really helped mentally. So I had a couple contractions sitting here. They were harder to breathe through, but I knew it was picking up. Every contraction that I had, I just told myself, she's moving down. Instead of making a humming sound with Evelyn's birth, I instead was just trying to breathe through all of them, and in my mind mentally saying down, like along through the contraction. I was just like mentally saying in my mind down, because I was picturing her physically moving down into good position. And it was just amazing because I wasn't focused on any of the pain. I was just thinking about trying to feel her continue to work her way down. And yeah, that really helped me stay focused. So I had about 2 or 3 contractions doing that. And we called my midwife back at 1:40. So about 10 minutes went by. And we told her it picked up really quickly and we're ready for you to come. So she said, okay, I'll pack up and I'll be there in 40 minutes. So we continued to play music, and okay, so it's 1:40 right now. Evelyn was born at 2:11. So in 30 minutes time, things picked up really quick. I had to, it felt like I had to use the restroom. I remember this. So I told my husband that, and he said, be careful, because that's how my mom had her first baby, was that same feeling, but it was a baby. So I was very cautious of that. I waddled all the way over there and waddled all the way back. I remember having a contraction in the kitchen on the way back. It was intense, but I just kept walking because it felt like she was getting closer and closer. So we get back over here, or I get back over here, Mark's still over here, and we have a shower curtain underneath the pool. We have some towels out, and I go to step in the pool because I tell him, you know, I think she's close and we need to, I want to be in the pool now. So I step in, and it's still scalding hot. It's too hot. I think it was like, the temperature was 110, and it's supposed to be between 98 and 100 when she's born. So I had to step back out and wait for it to cool down. And when I stepped back out, I just leaned up against the pool and the other couch over there on top of the shower curtain. And so at this time, let's say it's a little after 2 o'clock. We're still waiting for the midwife, and I'm having these intense contractions on the side of the pool there. Mark's behind me. You know, I'm not really sure what he was doing back there. I feel like with the births and what Mark is doing, I never remember what he's doing in the moment. So if he pops in the video, he can tell you what he was doing. But I had a contraction just a couple minutes, you know, after feeling the water and knowing it was too hot, so I had to get to the side of the pool. I had a really intense contraction that I felt her drop into the birth canal, I believe is how they word that, but she was right at the edge, so about to come out. With this contraction, I felt her come to the very edge, so I knew with the next contraction I would be pushing. So I'm next to the pool, Mark's behind me, and I told him, next contraction, she's coming out. And mind you, the midwife isn't here yet. My husband, this is our first home birth, so he says, I think something along the lines of, can you just wait, or can you just hold her in, because midwife's not here yet. I don't know what to do. And the only thing in my mind, I said, it's okay, we got this. I had this immense feeling of contentment and peace, knowing I'm in a good position for her to come out. If she comes out quickly, then that means she's in a good position. I was thinking and hoping and praying that the umbilical cord wasn't wrapped around her, we didn't have to do any type of intervention. Those were just like really quick things that crossed my mind, but at the same time, I want this baby out right now. So with that next contraction, I just pushed until she came out, and my hands were right there to catch her. It was nothing to worry about. I just picked her up and put her against my chest and started rubbing her back. She let out a few cries, so I felt, okay, we're good here. I'm just gonna sit down, hold her up against my chest, and keep rubbing her back. And she wasn't crying very much, but I wasn't worried about it. I think she just wasn't super upset when she was born. And my husband, I can't remember the words he was saying, but he called the midwife right away, and he said, well, we had a baby. And she said, oh, okay, well, just hold her up against your chest with a towel and I'll be there in 15 minutes. She was 15 minutes away. So Evelyn and I sat there and I held her up. We had skin to skin. We planned to already do delayed cord clamping, so I wasn't worried about the umbilical cord. We were just gonna let the nutrients continue to flow. We still felt that heartbeat in the umbilical cord, so we were just letting the nutrients continue. It was getting cold on the floor. I remember I was cold. She was wrapped up in a towel. As soon as they got there, it looked like a crime scene, but everyone was okay. We were doing good. There was a sense of peace. I think Mark was in very much shock, but so excited. It was just the two of us at home, and we were able to deliver our second baby, who is healthy and happy. She's been really good. And so, yeah, really grateful for how everything happened. I knew that if she was gonna come fast, that means she's in a good position. I don't need to worry about her getting stuck or anything like that. And the breathing techniques really worked mentally, focusing on imagining her dropping, down into the canal and in a good position really helped me not think about pain, but instead to think about her positioning and how intense it was, but how neat. With each contraction, she's getting that much closer to being born. So Mark is here now joining us. I wanted him to hop on and maybe share a couple of his thoughts that were happening during this birth and now looking back at it.
So
What do you think?
my thoughts on the birth. At first I was not a big fan, just because we weren't going to be at a hospital or a birth center where they have literally everything. So I questioned it a lot at first in my own mind. You probably kind of got the idea that I questioned it just because I wasn't excited about it per se at first. But then once I just kind of mulled over and processed it more, I was okay with it. I wasn't ecstatic about it, just because I guess for me, I'm not like some guys where the birth of their child is what their whole life was culminates in, I guess. So I'm not like that sort of excitement or ecstatic emotion. But I was still for this particular event, I was okay with doing it that way, I guess. As a lot to say that little thing. But when it comes to safety, just all the questions and concerns that I didn't have answered yet. But
yeah, which is probably things that you as the viewer maybe have questions about too. The safety of home birth and why people choose to do it, which can be another video, but rightfully so, everyone questions it, and we should question.
Yeah. But one of the things that helped me kind of cope or get to the point that I was okay with it was realizing that people have had births in cars, before they had all of the technology that we have now. Kids were still being born. I mean, even at the very first births with Cain and Abel, they didn't have anyone else but mom and dad there. And so thinking about those things, processing those things, helped get to the point where I was all right, we can do this. But when it came to that time for birth, then everything kind of went out the door, because I was, in my mind, I had kind of married my own thinking to the idea that the midwife would be here, and she was not here. So this was probably the first time in our marriage that I felt legitimately unprepared, didn't know what to do. And if I had a man card before that, I lost it in that moment, because I was like, I don't know what to do. I was standing what I felt like was the completely wrong place to stand. I was behind her and couldn't really see anything because the lights were out. Because it was all like setting the mood, and so like the whole peaceful mood was not good for being able to see things. I didn't have gloves, and like I have to tell myself when I'm cooking food, like I have to mentally prepare myself to touch meat and stuff like that, just because I'm not like everyone else or some people where they're like, oh, let's get our hands dirty and make some food or whatever. So touching the baby or her or anything, I was like, my hands are not, I did not get prepared for this. And then, but her being calm and collected and just okay in that moment was helpful for me. And we've been kind of that way throughout our whole relationship, like moments where she feels unprepared or uncertain or whatever, the Lord's been gracious enough toward us to where I'm calm, cool, and collected. Or when I'm not prepared, unsure, or whatever, she's in that moment calm, cool, and collected. And so this was one of those moments where it was kind of flipped, where she was the calm, cool, and collected one. I was like looking out the window, hoping the midwife would pull in any moment, and she was actually still like 15-20 minutes away at that point. Yeah. So yeah, but everything worked out. She was before her last contraction. She kind of was like, it's okay, I said I didn't know who was gonna catch, like, do you want me to catch the baby or you gonna catch it? And you're like,
I said next contraction, yeah, she's coming out, and it's probably not what you expected
I was like,
to hear.
Whoa. I asked her, can you hold her in for a little bit longer? And she's like, no, it's coming. I said, and then she said she would catch the baby, and I was like, all right, cool. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting moment. But in between her answering that question and then her being on the ground with the baby in her hands, it all kind of like, it was kind of blank in my mind at that point. I don't really remember, like, I saw the baby coming barely, and then was like panic mode, I guess. And then you had the baby, and then I was helping you, like, kind of still stay on the rug or the plastic on the ground and not get the carpet dirty, and laying down. Yeah. So, but it was a lot of emotions. But just.
Would you do it again? Would you do a home birth again?
Yeah, I would just try to make sure that, like, the one thing I would change is make sure I have, like, latex gloves.
Okay.
But the difference was, I feel like maybe you were able to control it, or just outwardly, you weren't as, like, you were much more calm and, like, breathing through this time compared to last time. Last time it was like, a little bit longer, and it didn't hit as fast. Like, we got to the birth center. It did. Yeah, it was just a little bit different in how, like, just with her, it was boom, all of a sudden baby's coming. And so
I think we had about 30 minutes of the time we called the midwife the second time and said, now's the time, between then and her, Evelyn, being born. So that intense part of the labor was so much shorter.
Overall, it was fun. Fun is probably the best way to describe it, because it was just, and just being mentally prepared that things will go awry.
Well, thank you for being here.
Bye.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts.
Yeah.
We did get a couple questions on Instagram that I wanted to go ahead and answer as well on this video. I think it might be kind of helpful. They're questions about home birth, why we chose it, things like that. So one of our questions is, how long was your labor? Also, I heard the midwife wasn't quite there when Evelyn arrived. So we did already answer this in the video. The labor started at 10:30. She was born at 2:11. the really intense portion where I felt like I needed the midwife did not start until 1:40. So if that gives you a good idea of how fast things progressed. And yes, the midwife was not here when Evelyn arrived. She showed up probably around 2:35. Okay, so the next question, why did you decide to do it at home? We decided to do a home birth mostly because Theodore came so fast and we just made it to the birth center in time, and I didn't want to have any anxiousness or anxiety about having Theodore on the road, and especially because we live about 30 to 40 minutes away from the hospital that has the midwives that I would want to go to. So yeah, a 30 to 40 minute drive was just too much for me to, you know, think safety wise. So I wanted to actually have her here at home and just labor at home, be comfortable. Yeah, it was a really good decision. Next question, how do you handle recovery without medical staff? Tearing, episiotomy stitches, for example. Great question. So the medical staff is the midwife. She's a certified nurse midwife. So she's a certified nurse with extra schooling in midwifery. So she's gone to school for a very long time and is very well educated. She's a nurse with extra education. Tearing, episiotomy stitches, she does all of that here at the house. So I did have a 2nd degree tear, so she stitched me up right there. And she also brings along another nurse with her, so it's 2 nurses here, and that is you know, if that gives you peace of mind and having that extra support, you know, if anything were to go wrong, you have that extra person. And then another question, is home birth safer? My concern is what would happen if things went wrong. So just, yeah, more people being cautious and curious about the safety. I wouldn't say home birth is any safer, but there is obviously lower percentages of C-section, just because you're laboring at your own pace. You're letting your body take its course. Some of the times C-sections happen because baby is rushed to be born to make it at a certain time, maybe for a certain doctor who has, you know, only a certain amount of time, or if they need to wait and hold it out so that the doctor can be there. That is the time that usually things can progress to a C-section. So when you're letting your body do its own thing, she's gonna come when she's ready and in good position the majority of the time. So I was not worried about safety. I knew I was low risk, and yeah, safety just was not one of my concerns. If something is to go wrong, then we just, you know, take a trip to the hospital. And the hospital that I would like to go to is 30 to 40 minutes away, but if we needed to, there's one closer. Again, but that just was not a concern of mine because I was low risk, and I knew, you know, if she's gonna come fast, then she's in good position. And if she's gonna take a while, great, that will give the midwives time to get here, and we'll just let her take her course, her being Evelyn. Yeah, so that is the story of Evelyn's birth. It happened super quick, but everything went so well, and I praise God for, you know, watching over us and keeping us all safe and content. We were able to rest and heal here at home right after her birth, and that was the best part, I think. think. It's just being here in the new house. I was able to birth, you know, next to the Christmas tree, and she is our early Christmas gift. Thanks again for watching. If you haven't yet, subscribe to our channel so that you know when the next video comes, and also give this video a like. Stay tuned for next week's video.